all protocols acknowledged. Kenechi Okeleke, that's my name, and I'm with the GSMA. I'm based in the London headquarters, and we've got an office here in Africa, and that's in Nairobi. So today I'm going to talk about, digital trends in Ghana, Ghana's digital landscape, and what the key driver for this. First of all, about the GSMA. Now, the GSMA is an organization that represents the interest of mobile operators globally. We have about 800 mobile operators that are members of the GSMA, and we work with the entire ecosystem, to leverage mobile technology to achieve so many things that we want to do in the world today. Now, Ghana, like, pretty much every other developing country in the world, is undergoing, is going through a digital transformation. This is a statement of fact. If it wasn't true, we wouldn't be here today. However, it's important, that we understand the nature of this transformation, because when we do, that's when we'll be able to, one, take advantage of all the opportunities, and secondly, find ways to address the challenges, that might prevent some people from benefiting from this digital transformation. And perhaps, the first and, in my opinion, most important fact to establish in this is the fact that mobile technology is what is driving this digital transformation. Now, I'm going to highlight a few points about this. First, what mobile does around connectivity, innovation, and lastly, social impact. So let's just see if we can unpack these a little bit. So if you look at Ghana today, unique mobile penetration is about 67%. And if you compare that with fixed line penetration, that's just about 1%. So pretty much everybody that's going to key into Ghana's digital transformation will most likely do that through mobile technology. It's the first, and in many cases, the only access most people have, to the internet. So mobile internet penetration in Ghana, unique. That's pretty much everybody who has a unique mobile internet connection is about 45%. And if you compare that to fixed broadband penetration, it's just less than 1%, about 0.3%, to be specific. Now, mobile technology is also enabling machine-to-machine M2M connectivity and IoT services. And today, Ghana has about 676,000 M2M connections, and this is growing very rapidly. We're going to see M2M play a very major role, especially in the utilities sector. So things like solar pay-as-you-go technologies will rely on M2M. People operating, in the waters and sanitation space will also require M2M for their services. And obviously, mobile is enabling this in the country. And Ghana is a leader, in Africa when it comes to mobile connectivity. If you can look at the map that we have there, it's not very clear, I'm afraid, from the presentation, but pretty much there are just about 5 or 6 countries that have mobile penetration rates above 60%. Ghana is the only one in West Africa, and apart from Gabon in Central Africa, the others are in Southern Africa. So Ghana is a leader in there. The regional penetration rate is 44%, and Ghana is up to 67%, which is very good. Let's look at innovation. Today, mobile has become the primary platform for creating, distributing, and consuming digital content. If you want to use any digital service today, you most likely would do that over a mobile phone. If you want to create a digital service today, chances are that you'll prioritize doing that over a mobile phone. On my way here, I watched a report on BBC Africa Business. Some of you might have seen it. And it was focusing on gaming in Africa. And if you look at the way gaming has gone in other regions of the world, they pretty much, use the consoles and other technologies, computers, for the games. Now they're beginning to go into mobile. But in Africa, we're leapfrogging that so that game developers are not doing that over consoles, because how many people have consoles? Okay, so game developers are beginning to, develop their games, what you probably need a console to do, an Xbox to do, or whatever, you pretty much will be able to do that over a mobile phone, and that is pretty, amazing. Now, Ghana, more than 20 active tech hubs in the country at the moment, and that is only behind just a handful of countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The tech hubs in Ghana, are obviously supporting this trend in innovation we're talking about. But another thing that's very important is also finance. And I know many of the helpees, I think that's the term, used to describe them earlier on, will know how very important it is to get the financial backing they need, to get their ideas off the ground. Ghana is beginning to, attract quite a lot of investments in this area. So in 2016, according to Disrupt Africa, about 9.4 million US dollars, came into the Ghana tech space. New startups, raised about 9.4 million dollars. Now, at the moment, it's just about 5 companies, and those are the 5 companies up there on the screen. But one thing binds all of these companies together, and that is they all have built their platforms and their solutions using the mobile technology. Okay, so that again reinforces the importance of mobile, and I really hope that as subsequent discussions go on in this conference and after this conference, we're going to realize and begin to use this platform in a way that we've never done before. Another factor, or another fact, as it were, is that the GSMA Ecosystem Accelerator Program runs an innovation fund, and in the last 2 years, about 42 mobile-based applications have been received from Ghana alone. And finally, mobile operators are beginning to work more closely with tech startups. Why is this? One, mobile operators have achieved the scale, that these startups don't have at the moment. But also, these startups have ideas and innovations that mobile operators probably don't have the time, to develop themselves. So there's this synergy that's beginning to happen between, the tech startup ecosystem and the mobile operators. Ghana is a prime example of where this is happening already, with Vodafone working very closely, with startups, identifying ideas that they can take to market and grow to scale. Thirdly, social impact. And for me personally, as an African, this is what I would say motivates me in the job I do, talking about mobile. That today, it's not just a technology that you can use, to call somebody and say hello or to send an SMS, but it's a technology that's having significant social and economic impact on people's lives in developing countries, Africa especially. If we look at developed worlds, what they have that we don't have in Africa are pretty much 2 things. It comes down to 2 things. One is finance, funding, and the second is infrastructure. Now, these 2 things are lacking in Africa, and these are the reasons why we have so many of the social challenges, that we currently have in the region. Now, where is the money going to come from when there are so many needs across Africa? That's anybody's guess. And even if the money were there, how long is it going to take to build out the required infrastructure to deliver these services to people in very remote communities? So you have people in very remote communities who lack access to health. They're not going to wait another 5 years or 10 years for you to build the hospitals. They need it now. You have people in communities who need, access to education, financial inclusion. They're not going to wait, for the next government to make promises around that. They need it now. But what mobile is doing for us today in Africa and in other parts of the world is that it's helping us leapfrog the infrastructure and funding deficits. So it's helping us deliver services to places where there are no infrastructure to do that, in a way that if we were to wait for the infrastructure to be available, so many people are just going to die without having access to those services. So if you look at the map we have all up there, it's shown areas where mobile is having socioeconomic benefits for people in developing countries. In Ghana specifically, and that's the discussion that's going to come after me on fintech, Ghana has one of the most advanced mobile money markets across sub-Saharan Africa, and the numbers up there speak for themselves. 8 million active mobile users across Ghana. That's about 40% of the population. More than 550 million transactions in 2016 alone. That is huge, and this is equivalent to 18 billion US dollars that have gone through mobile phones across the country in 1 year. Now that's how huge the opportunity is, and I know the panel coming after me will talk a lot more on that. There are also other areas that are emerging in the country where mobile is having this impact, and we have them up there: health, education, agriculture, utilities, and the rest. These have already taken up. There are also opportunities that I think will materialize over the next a few months. Transportation, for example, I hope there are innovators in the room that are going to begin to think about how mobile can make an impact in transportation in Ghana. Disaster response, waste management, public services, and digital identity. The last panel discussion spoke a lot about digital identity. Mobile is going to play a significant role in it, I believe. The simple reason is this: if you're going to give people digital identity, what do people have that they can use to access those digital services? It is their mobile phones. So mobile will play a significant role in there, and obviously that is something that will happen over the next 12 months, considering what Moses told us about in the last panel. Now, this is just a quick overview of the mobile market in Ghana, but some things I want to point out there. If you look at network coverage, yes, 2G is pretty much ubiquitous, more than 90% coverage. 3G, 15% of the population are not covered by 3G networks. 4G, just about 40% coverage at the moment. 3G is catching up with 2G in terms of total connections, which is good. However, smartphone adoption is just 27% of total connections. Now, there are many reasons why this has been the case. Affordability, one of them, digital skills. But I think this is going to change in the next few years. Two things that would drive smartphone growth in the country will be cheaper devices coming into the market, government through positive legislation, lowering the taxes on mobile devices, and of course the second-hand market, which is growing very rapidly. So one thing we've seen in Africa is that so many people owning their first smartphones are doing that, because it's been handed over to them by a friend or a relative. So you have, many first adopters who are upgrading to higher phones, and when that happens, they hand over, their old phone to a friend or a relative, and then they become smartphone owners. So that is something that's going to drive smartphone adoption in Ghana and across Africa. And I'm going to end, with this slide. A lot has been said about collaboration, so much so that I was wondering if some of the previous speakers had seen my slides, but it cannot be overstated, in my opinion. The reason being that there's no single approach to this. It requires contribution from everybody in the ecosystem, all stakeholders, government, and it's good we have them represented here at the very highest level. mobile operators, ecosystem players, talking about the innovators, device manufacturers, and the rest of them, development organizations, and of course the private sector. Everybody has to work together, for this to happen. And I've identified 6 key areas where collaboration is required. I'm not going to go into details. Some of them, have been discussed extensively, and I know, that some of that will be discussed looking at the program that we have for the rest of today and tomorrow. But I'll just, highlight the need for a holistic approach to digitization, and we're beginning to see that in Ghana. So you're not going to see, a situation where a ministry comes up with a digital plan, and there is no linkage between their plan with other ministries or other arms of government. So there's a need for a holistic top-down approach to digitization so that everybody in the ecosystem, whether you're at the top or you're at the bottom, you have something that you will key into. So that is very, very important for this to happen. Connecting the unconnected. The Honorable Minister, has talked about people in Paga, that need to have access to connectivity. Collaboration is needed for this to happen. The private sector can't do it alone. The government can't do it alone, but they can work together to bring connectivity there. Digital skills and literacy, very important. Locally relevant digital content, designing this, implementing this. The innovators are here in the room. You can't do it alone. You need to work with other stakeholders, mobile operators, government agencies, government agencies, for example, to provide you the content that you need. So if you wanted to develop something around health, well, you need to work with the Ministry of Health, for the right content that you need to deliver those services. Interoperability of digital platforms, this is very, very important. And later this afternoon, we're going to have a panel discussion around security, consumer privacy, and online security. Also very important, that this is done in a collaborative way between stakeholders. So that's it from me today.